I was 4 when the country got invaded by the so-called Warsaw Pact that time, which were armies of the Warsaw Alliance. And I think since that time the life of the family changed so much that even as a child, which is not really understanding what's going on, just sensing, right, you find out that there are powers and there are eruptions and turbulences in this world which influence the individual up to the level that soon he or she starts to think, am I just like a little think? Am I a little think of a puzzle? Or am I the one who can put the puzzle together and maybe influence the shape of it? So it is a long process. But in a certain moment, you need to decide if you want to be, let's say, a little piece of this world which is taken by the stream, and of course you are taken by the stream, or do you want to see the stream, at least from above? Though I would say that a young age is very formative. It might not be formative from your conscious point of the view, but the unconscious instincts, feelings, emotions which are surrounding you definitely give you a lot of food to digest through your adult life. I think this is very individual. People would probably answer for that question from a variety of the angles. I would say that my young age brought me into a very open type of a path when everything was going on was influencing me in the way, can I do something about it? And it might be, you know, the God's finger pushing you and saying, okay, you're not the only one in here, have a look around. Or maybe it's a soul, maybe it's a God's finger inside us, which pushes us to go that way. But I can definitely feel it. Conscious understanding comes much later. When you learn about the history, when you learn about what was going on, and when you're listening to people who are around you. As a child, what I've learned and I listened to and I definitely felt was, where are my cousins? Why aren't they here with me in this country? Why some of them are growing in Britain and some of them in America? Why am I not able to visit them? Why my aunt is somewhere else than my mum, and etc., etc. The information you're giving back as well for the protection of the family and for your own protection is very limited, because adults around you are trying to protect you and the entire environment with giving you as less information as possible, knowing that you might not be able to digest it, or you might be able to split this information, God knows where, to God knows whom, and that might become very dangerous. Later on, when you're learning through the history, and mind you, it was still under the regime which was obviously very much influenced by the Russian doctrine and the view how the Eastern Bloc was supposed to think about the invasion. Hence, we were helped. We were there to be thankful because we were protected by Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact. So at the very beginning, your receptive understanding is very confused, because the family might tell you something, and your friends might pick up some other information, and the official sources would be very different again. I would say it helps you to develop antennas, to develop the sense to read between the lines. this type of skill takes a very long time. And it definitely is something you need to check up permanently, because this one says this one says that, this is written in the newspaper, this is told on TV, and this is written in the history books. Bloody hell, which one is true? I would say that that is, on the other hand, the perfect training for critical thinking. You are never sure. You need to ask the questions. You need to, as I said, read between the lines. You need to be able to read through gesture and non-verbal communication. Words which are usually seen as the messengers of the message and ideas are all of a sudden very mischievous tools. And that helps you to be aware that the truth might be hidden, the truth might be in a way even dangerous, and the truth is something what at the same time is very magnetic. It is something you are drawn to because it's got nearly the taste of forbidden fruit. I don't know if everyone in my childhood had this temptation to find out what was, under the surface, but I would say that that is the force still sitting in your more unconsciousness than real, ratio level, which drives you into this type of nearly like a mystical need to find out what's going on. Right. You're talking about a period of a Velvet Revolution in my country. Right. Well, Czechoslovakia of that time was one of the last countries behind the Iron Curtain which started to wake up. That time I was a fresh mother. My son was a few months old. And I should say, for me, it was an enormously energizing moment because I thought, wow, maybe he can have a different future. Maybe there is a hope we can unify with the family again. Maybe there is a chance for him to live in a free system. Maybe he would be able to make his free choices. I really was very, I would say, positive, even though being over 20, you still have sometimes unrealistic expectations. And, people from the older generation, I could recognize that they were obviously approaching the situation with a certain worries as well. Well, I was in the streets, even though I had a baby. I was at the students' demonstrations, and I was trying to figure out if there is, again, some way I can help. In fact, I was in a radio studio at the same day when the news about the Velvet Revolution, about what was really going on, spread through the radio broadcasting. It was a Czech radio, the first mass media, which released the news about people being at the Wenceslas Square. And again, I went to the radio with a completely different mission, and for a very long time I was listening to fake news. Nothing's going on, nothing's really, in thread, everything as it is. And you could watch it on your own eyes that people were already in the mood to change the system. I would say that it is a part of the historical movement, and that people at the very beginning really feel like, hooray, that things can come better. And they don't want to listen to those who would say, oh, each change is here for worse. Well, there is a change as a permanent part of our life, and for some people it means change is for better, for some people it means change for worse. I was in the broadcasting studio, and there was permanent noise, which was very strange. And the radio building, and that's the same radio building which got attacked in the year 1945 by Nazi, because they were calling people for the uprising against the Nazi, stays in a very famous building, and there is a tram going by. And whenever tram went by, my colleagues, and I was just a guest, I wasn't working for the radio, started yelling, "The tanks, the tanks, the tanks, the tanks are rolling." And in a certain moment, one of them says, "There are people, there is police, and there are the what is called militia. It says the people who are armed, even though they are not professional soldiers, standing in front of the gates of the radio, of the Czech radio, and we can't get out of there. And now they are coming in, and they will shoot us all." And I mean, copying what happened in 1948, and obviously people went through the very similar experience in 1968 with the Soviet invasion. And they said, "Barbara, you're little, we push you in the food lift," you know, the food lift where you're sending snacks, you're going down to the cellar, you escaped out of there, and you just pass the message. You will tell the people what happened in here. I said, "I'm not going in that lift, because I will get stuck in there, and then you just find a pile of the bones, and that's it. I'm not going to the lift. I'm going to die here with you." Well, nothing happened. We were lucky enough, because not everyone was so lucky. Though, during the Velvet Revolution, hence the name Velvet, people were not, I would say, killed as the, you know, through the violence, but many of them got beaten, many of them got imprisoned, and many of them died by consequences which happened at that time. Let me stop on one more chapter, which I think is very important for the puzzle. Just after revolution, and in fact, it was like even a few weeks before, and that was a huge thrill again, we were able to reunify with our families in Britain and in the United States. My aunt from Britain, who couldn't speak a word Czech until that time, arrived, and she saw my mother for the first time in about 60 years. That was a very long time. Mind you, my eldest aunt was sent to Britain in the year 1948, when the communist coup took place in Czechoslovakia. And the atmosphere to see two sisters which saw each other in a very early childhood, I was just describing myself, and how they reacted, and how all of a sudden those 60 years were gone somewhere, and they were again 4 years and 8 years old. The emotions, the enormous break of tears, the tears of sadness, the tears of happiness, really persuaded me that those formative years in the childhood are one of the most important, which really leave the track in you. I was extremely lucky, because my aunt, even being 8 years old when she was cut completely out of family, hence I do remember and I do understand the psychology of abducted children. She was not abducted, she was sent, but she was prevented from coming back. As an 8-year-old, she was sentenced, in fact, to death by betraying the country. Hence, her father never dared to call her back, and she had to stay out of the country for this entire time. So those years when children are not still realizing what's going on, but they are able to sense it, I think are definitely some type of a very strong force, which as the adult forms you. My aunt, as a psychologist and the children's therapist, decided in her adulthood to help particular children who were somehow stripped of the privilege to have their parents. And she was helping those children to go through this trauma, each by each. And I would say that she passed to me enormous feeling of responsibility, of, you know, everything which is surrounding you. Can be from the early childhood, even though you are not there to be strong enough to help, up to the adulthood. She had a very interesting sentence and a moment. She said, imagine that you, as a mother, as an adult who's in here, can see yourself as a 4-year-old and try to help yourself. And then see everyone in the little child and help them too. So, yeah, okay, I'll be fine. My aunt is gone now. She passed away, thank you. About 10 years ago. But I would say that she helped me to bring this maybe unconscious knowledge which is within each of us to the surface, and to say, you're strong enough to help. I saw her as a wonderful person. She was working for a variety of NGOs. She was helping everywhere where it was possible. And she was aware as well of the fact that, of course, she is, in a way, healing her trauma through it. She was aware of it. Sometimes people don't even know why they try and help. It was a very conscious type of a service. So, you know, looking at the war as a complex, at the invasion in '68, at the Munich Agreement, which happened which caused Czechoslovakia at that time to become a protectorate of a Nazi Germany, you read certain things in your textbook, and in future our children will read about what was going on here in the textbooks. But can you really understand what's going on from the perspective of a particular people? I think that there is only one way to understand it, and that's a compassion. I don't think that there is a possibility to grab the entire thing by ratio. I found the only way. I found the only way how to be a part of it, and that is compassion. As we say, if there is a will, there is a path. And I do believe that there are a lot of people who want to help, and that there are a zillion ways how to help. With my experience, I think it's as well very important to realize that hope is not the ultimate goal, that we need to be prepared for the process. But what hope definitely gives you is the understanding that what you're doing is worth it, that it goes together with your faith, that it goes together with your persuasion. Then I think you are on the right way. But I truly believe that the individuals, groups, organizations and institutions can find their ways. And many of them already do. And many of them are putting together the ideas. And what we've done during this project shows you as well. I think these are already, you know, a couple of people who's working on it. And it was a spark. It was like a little decision at a spot. And it works like a snowball. And faith in a human life is working as a compass. If you don't trust, if you don't believe, if you don't keep the faith in something better, you're closing yourself in a type of the internal prison. We are born as a very soft, fragile, and easy to be destroyed center of the onion, and our surroundings are surrounding us with the layers to protect us. But very soon we realize that the other onions on the other lawns are surrounded with the different layers. The layers, as the originally meant protection, start to block you. And they, in a way, protect you from the very heart-to-heart contact with the other human beings, because you are persuaded that they do something wrong. I would say that it's a very tricky, though necessary, work of us in this world to be able to be flexible in those layers, to keep them when they protect us, and to obviously teach our children that way, but to be able to open them and to be able to be even vulnerable if you feel that they connect. And as we all know, this world is not here to give us guarantees that we will survive everything, that we will be happy, that, you know, everything will be seen through the rose glasses. This world can be a very dangerous place. This world is designed to test us in a variety of the ways. But at the same time, it teaches us that we came here as the human beings, and if we stay faithful to that path, I think we will be one day able to pass away with the feeling, I've done what I was supposed to do. We are trying through the partnership with the Luxembourg's institutions, with people who are working for them and who know they are people, to find the communication channel. I'm a professional diplomat. Communication is one of our tools, how to find the understanding. As a diplomat, you're trying to find the right words, you're trying to find the right tools, and you are trying to find the right channels as well, how to communicate what you want. Your ultimate goal is that people would understand each other, maybe change a little bit their view, or one of them would find out that, you know, the second one is right. And for the moment, that is the I would say a point of a glory, because we found the common language. The language in the, you know, academical understanding might not always be the only tool. For someone, it can be the lecture when someone intellectually brilliant is able to bring, and I would call it enlightenment, the ray of a light, which all of a sudden brings the understanding. For someone else, it might be music. It might be very emotional. He or she all of a sudden understands that what he or she was listening to many times through the news or reading in the newspaper and was not really reacting to it, through the music all of a sudden understands what is all that about. For someone else, it can be image, it can be visual impact, which those people are all of a sudden opening the gate into what I call the inner part of the onion. They are able to find the communication from heart to heart, or brain to brain, or it can be manual help working on something and all of a sudden feeling unified. You're trying to find the channels of unification. That is something what we're trying to do in here. Journalists are trying to do it, politicians are trying to do it, diplomats are trying to do it. Well, but at the same time, we've got the channels in here of disinformation. They try to do the very opposite. This is what our world is about. You've got different forces with the different goals, and they are permanently touching each other, and very much depends from which angle you look at it. I think, and you know, the concept of Eastern and Western Europe is here from the time of the Cold War, when Europe was divided by the Iron Curtain. Specifically, Czech Republic is here much to the west than Austria. We are a part of Central Europe, though as a concept of thinking, you're much more into the time zone, time of the Cold War. And why am I talking about the time? Because that is the time we lived through, and we do understand what it looked like, and we obviously draw our nowadays fears and threats from that experience. From some of us, like myself, I lived through it myself. For some younger generation, it can be stories of their parents, it can be films they saw. And I would say that on the other side of the barricade, looks really strange, people have their stories, they have had their experience. And as I said, if they decide to listen to you, I'm pretty sure we find the channels. If they prefer to live their lives out of this issue, it is very difficult to get connected. We know that there are armed conflicts, genocides, and the permanent battles between a variety of the groups on this planet. We are still trying to prevent them. Professional belief, professional, let's call it trust, is another force which tells me we're here to help Ukraine. I can carry on. It's I think the ultimate goal for everyone to find those sources of the energy inside. It's something what the medieval philosopher Jan Amos Comenius called the labyrinth of the world and the paradise of the heart. You should search in your own heart and find the right reasons, but that needs a courage.